We are ready. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Larry James. I own a company called Speak with Larry, no spaces. And let me show you my shirt. Speak with Larry. Yes, I am Larry. What do you think about that? All right. Anyway, I own a company called Speak with Larry, no spaces. And what my company teaches you how to do is set up the foundation of your online business while helping you become more comfortable speaking about it. And if you're watching this video from a course that I created, thank you. I appreciate you investing in yourself as far as gaining an understanding about the stock market. This video series or this online course series was designed to help you to understand the stock market in line with help you understand how to set up your own business online or your own presence online or to become more familiar with the internet, right? All that, you get all that rolled into one. Now, this is probably going to be either the last video or the second to the last video on the course that I'm creating to close it out. So if you're watching this and there's another one after this, that's the last one. Okay, if not, this is the last one. So thanks again for investing in yourself, and I really appreciate it. So with that, this video is going to go over what is Wall Street. Now we're talking about the stock market. Those two go hand in hand, as you know. So Wall Street is literally a street located in New York City at the southern end of Manhattan, to be precise. But figuratively, Wall Street is much more, a synonym for the financial industry and the firms within it. This connotation has its roots in the fact that so many brokerages, and investment banks historically have established headquarters in and around the street, all the better to be close to the New York Stock Exchange. Now, while being on Wall Street is no longer de rigueur of financial industry firms, many, in fact, are located all around the country, or even to trade stocks, which primarily happens online now. The term Wall Street still means business, the investment business, and the interests, motivations, and attitudes of its players. So let's understand Wall Street. Although Wall Street and its surrounding southern Manhattan neighbors, known to locals as the financial district, remains an important location where a number of financial institutions are based. The globalization and digitalization of finance and investments have led to many American broker dealers, registered investment advisors, and investment companies being established around the country. Still, Wall Street remains a collective name for the financial markets, the companies that trade publicly, and the investment community itself. Stock exchanges, investment and commercial banks, brokerages, and broker dealers, finance services, and underwriting firms. It's a globally recognized expression symbolizing the U.S. investment industry and, to some extent, the U.S. financial system. Now, both the New York Stock Exchange, which is the largest equities-based exchange in the world, and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, arguably the most important regional bank of the Federal Reserve System, are based in the Wall Street area. Wall Street is often shortened to the street, which is how the term is frequently used by those in the financial world and in the media. For example, when reporting a company's earnings, an analyst might compare a company's revenue to what the street was expecting. In this case, the analyst is comparing the company's earnings to what financial analysts and investment firms were expecting for that period. Now, a little about the history of Wall Street. Wall Street got its name from the wooden wall Dutch colonists built in Lower Manhattan in 1653 to defend themselves from the British and Native Americans. The wall was taken down in 1699, but the name stuck. Giving its proximity to New York ports, the Wall Street area became a bustling center of trade in the 1700s, but its origins as a financial center, but its origins as a financial center until 1792, when 24 of the young U.S. most prominent brokers and merchants signed the Buttonwood Agreement. They reportedly gathered on Wall Street under a buttonwood tree to do business. The argument, the agreement outlined the common commission based form of trading securities, in effect, and of an effort to establish a members only stock exchange. Some of the first securities traded were war bonds, as well as banking stocks for such institutions as the First Bank of the United States, Bank of New York, and the Bank of North America. Now, out of this acorn of an agreement, the oak tree that became the New York Stock Exchange grew. In 1817, the Buttonwood brokers renamed themselves the New York Stock and Exchange Board. The organization rented out spaces for trading in several locations until 1865, when it settled on a location of its own at the corner of Wall and Broad Streets. Now, a fast fact is that the beating heart of Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange, is technically not on Wall Street at all. Its main building, a 1903 neoclassical structure of white marble, has a street address of 18 Broad Street. An adjacent annex constructed in 1922 is located at 11 Wall Street, though there is another subsidiary building at 20 Broad Street. Now, together, these three buildings fill the block bound by Wall Street on the north, Broad Street on the east, Exchange Place on the south, and New Street on the west. As the United States grew, several other major exchanges established headquarters in the Wall Street area, including the New York Mercantile Exchange, the New York Board of Trade, the New York Futures Exchange, and the American Stock Exchange, now known as the New York Stock Exchange Market, New York Stock Exchange Amex Options. To support the exchanges to be where the action was, banks, brokerage firms, and financiers had offices clustered around Wall Street. In the late 19th century and early 20th centuries, the House of Morgan, officially J.P. Morgan and Company, the forerunner of J.P. Morgan Chase and Morgan Stanley, was right opposite the New York Stock Exchange at 23 Wall Street. And after World War I, New York City surpassed London to become the world's largest and most significant financial center. The financial center of New York City was Wall Street. Now let's talk about Wall Street versus Main Street. Wall Street is often compared and contrasted to Main Street. The term Main Street is used as a metaphor for individual investors, small businesses, employees, and the overall economy. It is derived from the common name for the principal street of a town where most of the local businesses are located. There is often a perceived conflict between the goals, desires, and motivations of Main Street and Wall Street. Wall Street tends to represent big businesses and financial institutions, while Main Street represents mom and pop shops and small companies. Make sense? I thought so too. Now, some Wall Street frequently asked questions. What does Wall Street speculation mean? Well, speculation refers to the act of conducting a financial transaction, usually trading stocks, commodities, or assets that has a high risk reward profile. That is, there is a possibility of substantial gains, but also substantial losses. And An investor who purchases a speculative investment is likely focused on the price fluctuations rather than the fundamentals of the asset. They believe that the market has inaccurately priced it and are trying to take advantage of the disparity before the market corrects its estimation. Now, speculative investments are often very short term ones, and Wall Street speculators tend to be professional traders as opposed to retail investors who buy and hold onto stocks or other assets for the long term. Now, what time does Wall Street open and close? I figured this was very interesting to know for people who were like getting in the game and didn't really understand the process and wanted to make certain that, things had at least been processed through their mind. So the major stock markets, including the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, are normally open 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. However, there are also extended hour sessions earlier and later. For instance, pre-market trading typically occurs between 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m., though it can begin as early as 4 a.m. Eastern Time. After hours trading starts at 4 p.m. and can run as late as 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, you remember the movie or The Wolf of Wall Street? Well, who was that person? Who was the Wolf of Wall Street? The Wolf of Wall Street was a nickname for Jordan Belfort, a former Wall Street trader and founder of Stratton Oakmont, an over-the-counter brokerage house. In the late 1980s and 1990s, Stratton Oakmont participated in a number of different frauds, including pump and dump schemes and artificially inflated the price of penny stocks. In 1996, it was shut down. Belfort pleaded guilty to fraud and spent nearly 2 years in prison. He is currently a motivational speaker. Now, what was Occupy Wall Street? Have you ever heard that term, Occupy Wall Street? Well, if you hadn't, welcome to this introduction. Occupy Wall Street was a 2011 protest movement against social and economic inequality that was centered in Zocata Park, located in Manhattan's financial district. It began on September 17th as hundreds of protesters camped out in the park. The police forcibly removed and arrested them 2 months later on November 15th. During the days, there were marches and speeches calling for more balanced income distribution, better paying jobs, bank reform, and less corporate influences in politics. We are the 99% was the Occupy protesters' slogan. We are the 99%. Now, finally, what is Black Wall Street? That's a topic that's being discussed right now more and more, and it needs to be because of its relevancy. Now, Black Wall Street was a nickname given to the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, one of the largest and most prosperous African American business communities in the United States in the early 20th century. In May and June 1921, its 35 blocks were destroyed during the Tulsa race riot. More generally, Black Wall Street can also refer to any area of African American high economic or financial activity. Now, that concludes this video. I really appreciate you for taking the time to listen to that. And more so, I appreciate you taking the time to invest in you. This is very important. You have to understand moving forward, just as you did with this system, it's essential that you continue to gain knowledge from those who walk that walk and who's done what it is that you're trying to do. Because people leave clues, right? When we're making our trek through life, trying to figure out, how we're going to do things that will best benefit, who we are and what we stand for, we actually are able to teach that to people because we've made it through that part, right? We've actually experienced that. We walked that walk. Like when you think about a lot of college professors, a lot of college professors really aren't financially successful. They're not. They teach theory. Theory and actuality is different. It's actual, what you actually have to do and what actually happens is different than just how you think it will work, right? Because once you start the process, you'll get a different feel of everything that's actually taking place, right? The schedule, the timing, the discipline, the strategies, all that come into play. But when you're just, learning it from a theoretical perspective, you're not losing or gaining. You're just, absorbing information, which is totally different. But you're not that person, right? You're going to be the person who actually puts steps, logical steps, takes action to what you gain, the information you gain. And I appreciate that. So with that being said, again, thanks for investing in your growth. It is absolutely necessary. And don't forget to share these videos if you're watching them on YouTube or Facebook or any other place that I post, because these will benefit other people. They may not have an effect on you, but someone else may really be waiting to see these videos, right? So again, as I always like to say, my name is Larry James. My company is Speak with Larry, no spaces. And as always, share with someone else what I've shared with you.